Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the lit review and
Can you follow?
yeah, well, that's one.
John.
I'm not doing any
Good evening, everybody. A special board meeting of the Board of Trustees of the McAllen Independent School District will be held Monday, December 11th, 2023, beginning at 5 p.m. in the Dr. Ricardo Chapa Boardroom of the Administration Building of the McAllen Independent School District, located at 2000 North 23rd Street of McAllen, Texas. Items listed on this agenda may be taken in an order other than as shown on this agenda. At this meeting, there may be discussion and action by the board on the items and subjects listed as follows. Item 1, call the meeting to order. I have done so at 5 p.m. Item 2, public comments. There are no public comments. Nobody is signed up this evening. Number 3, discussion and possible action to amend the 2023-2024 compensation plan to include voter approval tax ratification election, VATER, and other available funds. Dr. Gutierrez.
Yes, Madam President and members of the board. Administration is proposing to amend the 23-24 compensation plan as part of the budgetary process of the past voter approval tax rate election called on November the 7th by a board of trustees. Ms. Iris Luna, our interim assistant superintendent for business and operations, will share more information, and we have a PowerPoint to present to the board of trustees on our recommendation.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, Dr. Gutierrez. I'll be presenting on the voter-approved tax rate election. And on November 7th, there was a special joint election that contained Proposition A for McAllen ISD voter approval tax rate election. It passed with 57% for and 43% against. With the VATRE passing, taxpayers will see a decrease of 9 cents in the 2023-2024 tax rate from the previous year, going from 1.0964 to 1.0011, the lowest in the past 16 years of McAllen ISD history of tax rates. The funding being generated through the VATRE for the 2023-2024 is an estimated $5.2 million and will be used for additional VATRE compensation, longevity pay, and VATRE stipend. Safety will be covered by a new safety and facilities enhancement grant that we received for approximately $3.4 million, as well as additional state aid from the future legislative sessions.
I'd just like to add on this slide that by the tax certification election being approved, now that the district has those 4 pennies that we will have from now on, the district will generate that amount of approximately $5.2 million moving forward. And if you look at the previous slide, our tax rate is the lowest within the last 16 years. We have a history of the tax rate. So I want to thank the community and everyone who voted for the TRE that by getting $5.2 million more into our general fund, it's something that is going to go back to the employees, but also at the same time that the tax rate is the lowest within the last 16, 17 years. So that's amazing to be able to tap into additional funds and still have the lowest tax rate in the last 16, 17 years of the district.
So on this slide, number 6, the initial approved 2023-2024 compensation increase was a 1% across the board, which teacher and librarians received $565. The board also approved an additional compensation for the 2023-2024 year if the VATRE passes. This will increase the teachers and librarian salaries an additional 1.5% or $855, and 1% to clerical, technical, instructional support, and auxiliary staff, retroactively to beginning of the year. The last section indicates the approved compensation if the VATRE passed. So we have our initial compensation that we gave, that 1% in the first section. The second section is the additional amount of money we're going to be giving in January, feasible, and then of course the last one is what was approved by the board on June 19th as a total compensation if the VATRE passed.
And this slide is just to keep the promise that the board made to the community and to the employees back in June, that if the TRE would pass, then they would see that additional compensation, and we are making that recommendation to keep up with what the board directed us to do and also what was promised to the employees, to add that 1.5% more for the teachers and the 1% across the board for the clerical, the instructional support, and the auxiliary. So this is in line with what the board had already approved in June, and we're bringing it as a recommendation to keep up with the intent of the board and what was approved back in June.
The next slide, the 2023-2024 compensation plan included longevity pay, which is indicated in blue. Administration is recommending a VA TRE stipend, which is in purple, to be included with the longevity pay. The longevity cost is approximately $2 million. The VA TRE stipend at $968,000, and the VA TRE compensation adjustment was approximately $2 million, giving us a total cost of about $5 million.
And in this slide, you know, the board had already approved a longevity stipend, which is in blue. Our staff from 0 to 5 years were not going to get anything at the time, based on the fact that the budget was kind of tight in June. So now that the voter-approved tax certification election was approved by the voters, we feel that this money should go back to the employees for all the work that they've done for our school district and for our kids. So what we did, we added in purple some additional stipend to all the levels based on experience, starting now at $400 for anyone from 0 to 5 years, whereas before they weren't getting anything. And then if you can see, there's a slight increase at each level from the TRE. So this money is going all to the employees and back to the employees across the board, because this tax certification is everyone's additional funds, and we wanted to make sure that everyone had an opportunity to get additional stipend money from the TRE, and that's why you see it in purple, where we are compensating additional monies to the stipend based on the category of years of experience. So again, this is going back to the employees and thanking them for all the work they've done for our kids and for our school district.
I think this is exciting, especially for the 0 to 5 year. I know I had a couple of calls for teachers that have been teachers in other districts and have moved to our districts, and maybe we're here 3 years so far. So I think that this really does show an appreciation to them, because they work just as hard as everybody else. So I'm so grateful that they chose us, and I'm grateful that we're able to give a little bit back. So.
Correct.
So this slide shows that we had started the year with a budget deficit. By using the $5 million in the VA TRE, we end up with $239 excess. Then our budgeted net loss, of course, was approximately $4.3 million. We gave that 1% compensation back on June 19th, which increased it by 1.9 million, giving us an initial estimated loss of 6.2 million. With that excess VA TRE funding, we move it across of the 239. Now we're at $6 million deficit still.
We have other ways to look at how we can offset this deficit of the $6 million that we have a chance to look into, and there's a possibility that we can look at some of our ESSER funds, the excess ESSER funds, that we can reclassify and offset the deficit. So we're starting the process of looking at our ESSER 3 funding that we have, and possibly reclassify some monies that will be able to put us back in the black and offset the deficit. And I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end.
And our proposed timeline for this compensation is as follows. In December, the longevity pay and the VA TRE stipend will be distributed with their December payroll. In January, our human resources team will be updating pay assignments by 1 to 1.5% retroactively to the beginning of the year. This includes employees who have retired or resigned. And then in February, our payroll team will work on non-exempt employees' overtime pay through December and calculate any time previously docked with the current rate of pay.
I think it's good to emphasize also, I'm sure you're going to
talked about this too, but that we're retroactively
Yes.
paying employees. So when can they expect to see, I think you said February, you mentioned?
In January,
In
Ms.
January.
Kittleman?
Okay.
Yes. First of all, everyone is going to see their longevity pay in December. So that schedule that we showed about the longevity pay, everyone is going to get theirs before we leave for the holidays, before December 22nd. Then in January, Ms. Kittleman, we are going to now look into adding that 1% to 1.5% to those employees that are going to get that additional raise. And yes, we are going retroactively to when they started in August and pay them from when they started in August up until the present, which will be January of 2024. So that will be an additional monies that our staff will be getting in January as another raise that is retroactive to when school started. And so our employees will be paid for those days, for those months as well, from the raise that they're gonna get from the TRE.
Awesome.
So it's, so they're gonna get a big check for the most part in December for this longevity pay, and then they're gonna get one in January because we are going to include the additional raise plus retroactively to when they started in August.
Oh, that's good.
So, again, it's thanking the employees and for all the work they've done and appreciating that, the work they do with our kids. And this is one way to compensate our employees. I do want to add one thing before I forgot to say this, that the longevity pay, we included everyone from 0 to 5 years to get the $400. I'm new. I don't have any longevity. I qualify, but I'm not getting the $400. I'll be the only one that will not get it because I'm making this recommendation. And as a superintendent, I feel that I should be excluded from that because this goes to the employees. And that's what I'm going to do there.
Thank you.
I just want to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez.
And Dr. Gutierrez, as far as you could tell, based on the budgetary constraints that we had when we passed the budget in May or early June, we had not anticipated we had not decided on doing a retroactive pay, but that's something that you've looked at the numbers, and that's an initiative that you're putting forth to us at this point, right, after having reviewed everything?
That's correct. It was not something that was mentioned from the beginning about when the board decided to go out for a tax certification election. It was not discussed, but now that it passed, the right thing to do for our employees is to pay them retroactively, and that's why we are making that recommendation to the board to go back to when they started in August and pay them and give them that raise that they deserve, starting when they started their contracts back in August. And that's what we are recommending also. We feel that is the right thing to do for our employees.
And I'm so happy that 100% of the Vader is going to be used for our employees. And I also just want to emphasize too that the over $3 million will also be used on the safety, and what was it called? Was that
Safety and facilities enhancement.
Was that
grant.
a grant that we applied for?
Yes.
Okay, way to go, Miss Williams.
Yes, safety and security is still going to be a priority. We know that our kids need to feel safe and our staff coming to our schools, and there is grant money for that. And so at this time, we felt that it was best to put the entire compensation plan to focus on the employees for the TRE and reward our employees with a longevity pay, extending that and making it more, and also to give them that raise that they were promised if it had passed, but even better to go retroactively and pay them from the beginning of their contracts back in August.
Madam President,
Yes, Trustee Saldivar.
thank you. As I understand it, and looking at the material and asking questions prior to this meeting, the reason you're able to recommend this, if I'm on the right track, is that the community has been paying this tax throughout this whole period of time. And so it's not as if a Vider came and suddenly there's new money coming in. It's a realignment of 4 pennies staying with us that had already been collected throughout this past year. And that's why you're able to do this retroactive, since those funds were already collected. Is that my understanding of why you're able to do this?
Well, the tax rate was, we did go out to the public to get those 4 cents. That is correct. That is being collected for the tax year 2023. within the months of November, December, January, February, not.
Not prior to that?
No,
So,
no, not prior to that.
right, so how are we able to, it was my misunderstanding, I'm glad we're correcting it. So how are we able to go from August, or July 1 is our budget cycle, but they started in August when they came back, and going to November, that compensation, which I'm for, I'm totally, believe this is the way to go. But how are you able to do that without dipping into fund balance or any other revenue?
The funding that we're going to be getting for the
Yeah, the
year
5.2.
is approximately at $5.2 million within this tax year, or fiscal year 2023, 2024.
So is that going to be collected like in the November, in
It-
that
it-
time frame? Or
Correct, and
is
it's,
that-
part of it is,
Okay.
part of it is state funding, of about, what was it, $1.7 million, and then the collections were at $3.5 million. That $3.5 million is being collected for, within December, January, when the normal tax collections do start coming in.
So, well, this was not discussed in our decision-making in June during the budget cycle. It's not unprecedented that a board, now that it has a biter with the full sum that's necessary to compensate staff retroactively is now available.
That's correct.
No, we hadn't.
That's, to have it, to collect it retroactively, to go back and pay them? Is that the,
Yes, sir. No, I mean, I think this is a wise move. I'm glad you brought it to our attention and brought it to the table in making this recommendation. I think our staff well deserves this and has stayed with us and worked really, really hard and diligently through this whole process. There were a lot of challenges and a lot of uncertainty with what was happening at the state level. So it's good that we're able to now start on a track to balance our budget and project going forward. And I know you're going to cover that in a little bit as to what the next steps will be to get us on the right footing going forward. Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Trustee Saldivar.
I just received in the mail, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but I just received from the county my tax bill, and it just says McAllen ISD and the amount, so they just went out like last week. So,
Yes, that is correct. The mail just did go out last week. The county had to recalculate, of course, the tax levy, which took them some time, and then we had a vendor that we had to hire in order to send out those statements for McAllen ISD, yes.
Was that-
Separately and apart from the county. The county's still collecting for us, but we had to send out that statement separate and apart.
so did we have a cost that we incurred for that?
Yes, we did.
It was budgeted, though,
But it was already included, should the Vader pass?
Yes, correct.
Awesome.
for photocopies and postage.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Okay, we're back on page 9 of the presentation.
okay, this one is, I'm gonna touch base a little bit on the ESSER monies and some things that we need to start looking forward into ESSER in the spring semester. As we all know, ESSER is gonna be the deadline for all expenditures for ESSER will be this coming September of 2024. And the graphs that I want to show you is, these are TEA graphs, and this is something that they've been telling us over the last 2-3 years about how to avoid the funding cliff or the ESSER cliff. And basically what you see there is you see a bar graph of when ESSER came into the picture, which was in 2021 and through now. You see that blue, the top, in 2021, the top part, the blue, and then in 21, 22, and 22, 23, the green, which is also ESSER monies. But what the state was always warning us about and advising us to do is to make sure that we build a fund balance, because ESSER is going to eventually end in September of 2024. And they've been telling us this since way back in 2020, that we needed to avoid the funding cliff and we needed to increase our fund balance. Well, this is a typical graph that they've been showing, that if we were just spending ESSER and then not saving on our fund balance, that we may not be able to sustain all the operations of the district unless we build a fund balance. And the way we could do that is through ESSER funds, all right? So this is one that shows the funding cliff that can happen, because if you look at this graph, nothing was saved, nothing was built in the fund balance, and everything went back to how it was. And it may be difficult to continue operating a district with the same budget. And so what they were recommending, if we go to the next graph, if you see that, the years 23, 24, 24, 25, 25, 26, if you look at the gray boxes at the top of each bar graph, that was a recommendation that they kept telling us, build your fund balance. Utilize your ESSER monies as much as possible and save on your fund balance so that you could have a gliding pathway for the next 2 or 3 years and adjust on all your operations. Does everybody follow that?
Yes.
And I feel that here in McAllen, we can go to the graph before. Go to the one, yeah, I feel that that's where we're at right now, based on what I've seen so far. As I've been looking at our summary of finances and our ESSER monies and our budget, I feel that that's where we are. So fortunately, moving back to the next, go to the next, yeah. Fortunately, we will probably have some ESSER funds that were dedicated to projects, and we need to talk about those when we come back from the holidays, that may not be able, we may not be able to do those projects because, number one, we haven't even started. And the deadline to utilize these monies is coming up in September of 2024, which is about 9 months away. So what I want to do, and I want to propose, and we will have a workshop or a meeting about this as soon as we come back from the holidays, is to look at those ESSER projects that will not come into fruition, cannot possibly be done because of the timeliness already, and be able to put some of that into our reserves, our fund balance, so that we can increase our fund balance so that we could have at least 2 years to adjust as a district and be able to sustain the operations of a district with a healthy fund balance and be able to continue operating the district, providing the services that we need to provide, and maintaining salaries, increases for our employees, and have a 2 or 3 year adjustment period until we can stabilize funding-wise everything else. But that would take about 2 or 3 years, and that would take an increase of our fund balance. And right now, our fund balance is right above the threshold where we need to be, but we really need to increase it some more so that we could sustain the next 2 or 3 years and make an adjustment in our summary of finances. And the only way we can do that is by reclassifying and adding more to our fund balance and have that adjustment time that we need for the next 2 or 3 years. But again, that's something that we can talk about it when we come back. The good thing is that there are monies available through ESSER that we could reclassify and put more to our fund balance so that we could have this kind of a graph moving forward for the next 2 years instead of the one from before that where we are right now, and we need to do something about it and avoid the ESSER cliff and go through the gliding path that TA has been recommending us for the last 2 or 3 years to do. And that's how we will offset the deficit as well as sustain the operations and the things that we need to do as a district for the next 2 years without being in a financial crisis. That's all I have on those 2 slides. Are there any questions or on the presentation on any items from the PowerPoint or from the ESSER?
Madam President, if I may. I just have one question. It relates to the grant that we got. Have we already received that, or will that be coming in soon for the 3.4 million on the?
I have to formally apply.
Okay.
That is our allocation, but I do have to formally apply sometime in January. So
Okay.
I'm going to do it before we leave for Christmas break.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure that was something
It's been allocated to McAllen ISD, so the state had a whole bunch of different districts that it was allocated already. And that's the amount that was allocated to us. We just have a few more steps to do.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we were going to be able to take care of the school safety and as well as with the staff. So I'm glad that we were able to utilize the Vader funds to go towards compensation as well as get that grant in. That's amazing. So happy. Thanks.
This item is for action this evening.
I just wanted, Mr. Ball, what we talked about, they want to let the board know, you know how there was a lawsuit, but it was on the constitutional amendments?
Sure.
It had nothing to do with a TRE?
Yes.
You just want to let the board know about that?
Sure, so there were, you might have seen in the news, and I know I got a call from a couple of different folks about the lawsuits that were filed. Those lawsuits have to deal with constitutional amendments, even the stuff that's dealing with the proposed increase for the retired teachers. Some of it may come under that, guys, but I was able to get a couple of copies of the lawsuits. They're not gonna cover anything that has to do with us. Those are constitutional amendment lawsuits, and they're making claims, kind of leftovers from the previous election, that the voting machines were hooked up to the internet, that there were irregular votes, things like that. So it's not gonna have anything to do with us. We're on solid ground.
Thank you, Mr. Ball.
Madam President, if I may,
Yes, sir.
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the amendment to the 2023-2024 compensation plan to include voter approval tax rate election divider and other available funds.
Second.
It's been moved by trustee Saldivar and second by trustee Regalado. Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, go ahead, trustee Saldivar.
Yeah, the only concern, and I've had this conversation with, during my meeting with Dr. Gutierrez, as we all did, we had a one-on-one. And my concern is that we had to do what he's proposing, so I'm glad that he's moving forward in that direction. But going forward, if we take away from the going back to the cycle of construction, taking M&O funds instead of putting in compensation, I just want to be sure as we continue to move forward that we stay really focused on building that fund balance so that we can take care of our staff moving forward, because we need to attract and retain high-quality staff. And as far as funding of facilities, that needs to come from another revenue source. I just want to make sure that's your thought process. Dr. Gutierrez.
Well, of course, first of all, we're going to have to look into the increase in the fund balance, and we're already looking at the ESSER as a possibility. One of the things that this board did, which is a very good thing that y'all did, was the defeasance, where you put additional pennies into the INS, the interest and sinking fund, so that to pay our bonds. And in the near future, we're going to have to do a facility study. We're going to have to look at our needs, and a lot of these big projects could be handled through a bond, and without possibly raising any taxes, sustaining the same tax rate. And so those are things that we're looking within the next year and a half to 2 years to come up with a facilities plan, come up with an amount that we are going to need to improve our facilities, upgrade facilities, add facilities if we need to. And it will be possible through a bond, and that would be the best approach to go with those facility projects that are needed in our district, but that it's very difficult to try to pay for those out of our own budget. It's better we go through a bond, and it's going to be a great opportunity for our community to support the district and support facilities and upgrade facilities without raising taxes. And that's what it looks in the near future, and it looks exciting that we're going to be able to do these things without raising taxes. And that's why the TRE was indicative of how the community is supporting us. And we hope that within the next year and a half or two, when we call on a bond without raising taxes, that we get the same support and upgrade our facilities and add more facilities for our kids.
I appreciate your candor and being forthright about all aspects of your thinking about moving forward and sharing that with us and the community at the same time. And so I thank you. I think this is a very good first step. Thank you.
Just have one thing to say.
Trustee Pena.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Gutierrez, I know that you just got here and staff, you're getting to know everybody and everybody's, trying to work together, and it's been a short amount of time. So I'm really glad that tonight we're able to approve this money for our staff and our teachers and everybody, because it's important. And, frankly, the community mandated it when they voted for the Vader, and we're appreciative of that, because our budget still remains, at a tender stage. And I think that we usually get, and this is just a request, we usually get started on the budget a little closer to when we have to approve the budget. And I'd like to start talking about the budget as soon as we get back from the break. I don't want to get caught in a situation where we're rushing and we're having extra meetings and workshops and things like that. So I really would like for us to make the budget our priority, although we have a ton of things to do, but it's important that we start working on it now. You know, you've got some great ideas, and moving forward, I think the more discussion that we have on it, the easier it will be when we get to that point. So that's just something I kind of wanted to make sure we mentioned.
Thank you, Trustee Peña. Along those lines, I know people watching, when you said ESSER projects, a lot of people are going to be very fearful that their projects are considered ESSER projects. And a lot of the community doesn't understand where the different projects are being funded from. So when can we expect that workshop in January? At the beginning of January?
Yes, as soon as we get back, because the sooner we need, we can cover this, the better, because Ms. Peña is correct. We need to start now planning the budget for next year. And we're going to have to go through a series of meetings to finalize and start working on the budget for the 24-25 school year. Now, I want to remind everyone that we are not getting any state aid right now from the legislatures. Everything is on hold, as you all know that. So it's been a very difficult session because districts are kind of like on hold with additional funding that we're supposed to get, and we haven't gotten that money. There's close to $5 billion that's supposed to go into public education that is on hold. And by now we were supposed to have this money, and we don't have it. And so that makes it the challenge even greater now because of what's happening in Austin, that nothing has been given to school districts. And we were supposed to get more per child. We were supposed to get more for teacher salary increases. We were supposed to, the funding was supposed to be better. And we don't have any of that. We're going to have to continue working with what we have, and hopefully that they'll decide in Austin in the next semester, decide to release that money that is long overdue, and that we're all waiting for that, because we have budgets that we need to prepare for the next school year, and we don't have those additional monies that we all need. So it's a challenge.
Sorry, Madam President, if I may.
Yes, Trustee.
Only because Trustee Peña already made the request, Dr. Gutierrez, and the couple of things that I saw tonight from these proposals from yourself and your team, making the Vader and our compensation package amendments retroactive, and then doing the Vader stipend, that tells me one thing, and that's that you understand that we appreciate and we want our people to be a priority. And so as we're working to the budget workshops going forward, I said this in the spring, and obviously I'm very new, but one thing that I know is if it's your priority, it should be, up front. And so I really would like to see us talking about what percentage we're looking for to do compensation as far as an increase in compensation package for our people. And I really want to see that, from the outset as a line item and as something that we are committed to doing, whatever that amount may be. But I think that moving forward, it needs to be something we plan for and not an afterthought. And I trust that you're going to do that.
Yes, we will, and again, a lot of it is going to be depending on how what happens in Austin with those with that budget that hasn't been released to school districts, and so we may have to work with a preliminary budget until we know more about what's going to happen with our additional dollars that we're supposed to get. But definitely, the budget process starts in January, because by June 30th, we have to approve a budget for next school year.
Appreciate that.
Okay, trustees, so we have a motion on the floor by Trustee Saldivar, second by Trustee Regalado, to amend the 2023-2024 compensation plan. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We are now at the item 4, adjournment.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Trustee Peña, second by Trustee Kittleman. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 5:34 p.m.